Welcome everyone to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show with myself, Aaron, and Tom. And our guest this week, she's one half of the top two. It's one and only Savanna Stone. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing well. Now we had to reschedule, but we had to reschedule for a fantastic reason. You
Yes.
just bought a house. Tell us about it.
So I'm super excited. We had moved out here to California. For those who don't know, me and James Brady, my tag team partner, but also my fiance. And we've been living here just in San Diego, just in an apartment. And funny story, my parents' subdivision had a house that was looking for people and everything like that. And so we jumped aboard because our lease was coming up on the apartment that we were currently in. And long story short, we signed all the paperwork and we got the keys. And now it's just been the moving in process. But I'm really, really excited. It's definitely a new chapter, and I'm really excited for it.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, of course, we haven't seen the inside, but the outside looks gorgeous. You can see it on her Instagram. It's fantastic looking. So how does that feel, though, to be a homeowner? I know for myself, the very first time I was able to actually purchase a house, it was such a great feeling of accomplishment. To get out of the apartments, to get into a house. So tell me about, how do you feel right now?
I don't think it's like fully hit yet, just because we're still like moving everything. And I'm actually like in our apartment as we speak right now, still moving everything. Because with job, with wrestling, it's hard to find time to go back and forth and everything like that. But it's just one of the things, we kind of saw it, and we'd already like knew what the neighborhood looked like because my parents had lived there. And we loved it. It was a nice little gated community, and it was just, it's just a cute little place. And we saw the inside, and I just always feel like, just like in wrestling, like there's this feeling we always talk about, like you just know, like, if it's going to be a good match, in life, and me and James Brady had walked through it, and we just both looked at each other and we're like, yep, like this is it. Like you can just kind of like envision like the little things that you're going to do. And no, but I'm really excited. I definitely think, like I said, it's like a new step. It's a new journey. I think it's like a new step in our relationship too. So I'm really stoked.
So you mentioned something though. It's your parents are also in the same subdivision.
Yeah, that was not planned. Yeah, they're like 5 houses down, which we didn't necessarily plan for. But yeah, no, it ended up being in our parents' subdivision, weirdly enough. So we kind of knew the area. And like, I think our biggest thing is we wanted to stay in the area that we were in, because like the area that we're in right now, we love it. It has everything. It's close enough to wrestling. We're in San Diego. So like where we used to train in San Diego is an hour away, but we've also been training, up in LA at Santino Bros 2, which is also an hour away. So it's just like in the middle of like everything. So
hey, it's always good to have family close just in case you need something.
Exactly.
I know, even though my parents are getting older and I'm trying to I've got it, they still want to overdo it and help. So take that help while you can. Take that help while you can.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, you mentioned that you're originally from the Midwest area. So St. Louis, I'm a Chicago Cub guy, so I'm Chicago. But we travel to St. Louis quite a bit to watch the Cardinals play the Cubs quite a bit. But how did you make that transition from the Midwest to California? Was it a big transition for you mentally?
So that's a really good question. So like, it's like a 4-stepper. Like I have like little stages in my brain of how I got there. So I think like you guys said, like I had, when I first started my wrestling journey, I started in St. Louis, actually at Dynamo Pro. that's where I started my career. That's where I wanted to start my journey of becoming a professional wrestler. And I had really broadened my horizons, and I felt like tackled, a really good chunk of the Midwest, and also had done some East Coast stuff as well. And there was, just this point where I was like, I just graduated from college, gotten my associate's degree in criminal justice. And it was just kind of like at that phase of like, like what's next? Like what can I do next to further my career? And my parents were, they had retired. They had just retired. And so they were like, they've saved money for like their whole lives to move out here to California and retire out here. And they were going out there, and I was like, they had asked me, do you want to move out there? And I was like, man, I would love to, but I didn't want to leave James Brady because, we'd been together since the beginning. And, that was where my heart was. And, but we kind of had talked it through, and Brady was like, maybe we should try and, move out there, just the two of us and see, we hadn't really wrestled out in the West Coast yet, hadn't really made our, names known there yet, had done some Midwest stuff, done some East Coast stuff, and wanted to touch out here. And I feel like that's what we've been doing is trying to been, making our names all across the United States. So, yeah.
So have you seen a lot of major differences from the wrestling promotions out there versus what you were used to?
Differences, I wouldn't say like in terms of like companies or promoters, not so much, but in terms of like fans and like styles, 100%. I think and that's a really good question. I think, everywhere you go, like every region you go, the wrestling's a little bit different. Like just in general, fans are different and are interested in different things. And like, what's hot in the Midwest may not be hot in the East Coast or the West Coast. And so I think one of the biggest things I got the pleasure of doing is because I've tried to travel as much as possible. It is kind of picking up like to before and deeper, just from what I've seen, like the West Coast is very like lucha, high flying, but is also has that hybrid mix of strong style. And I think that's something that me and James Brady had brought so well to the table, is our strong style, especially just because, the Midwest is like a very, very strong style. Like, people, there's lots of people, at least when I was training there, that could, throw a punch and, all that good stuff. And so I think we're starting to bring that element out of the West Coast, along with some lucha, so we're kind of bringing that hybrid style. And I think the East Coast, I honestly believe, in my opinion, is the easiest because they just love everything. They're the most open, in my opinion. In the Midwest, I think they really appreciate that hard style. But again, they like a little lucha as well. So yeah, it's been very rewarding.
Where do you find yourself as a wrestling fan? You're talking about the East Coast, West Coast. Are you a fan of all these different type of styles, or do you have one that you kind of favor more than the other?
I think my style specifically is like realism, like just in general, like any style, like not because I think lucha can be real if structured correctly. I think, hot, heavy striking can be real. I think even character work, a match where it's just mainly character work can be real if you build it correctly. So I think for me, it's hard for me to pick like, oh, I'm a striker, I'm a this or whatever. I think just realism, anything that feels real, that pulls at the heartstrings, that makes me, okay, this isn't staged, this isn't fake, this is real, this is something I can like, it sucks me in. That's what I'm into.
As a fan, I've been a fan for, here comes me showing my age, and Tom's going to make us smirk, but I've been a fan for, over 3 decades now. And I love every style of wrestling, but I don't like everyone doing the same style of wrestling, if that makes sense. I love when I've got the two brawlers against each other. I love when I got the high flyers and the luchas against each other. but sometimes I think there's too many people who are trying to well-round their game, and I think it affects them a little bit. Do you kind of understand what I'm saying? How do you feel about that?
I absolutely agree. I think that's actually a very well made point. I think it's definitely good to be able to be a well-rounded wrestler, just simply based off of the fact that, if a promoter comes to you and says, hey, we need you to do this tonight, we need you to be this tonight, that's obviously very important. A lot of, old school, that's kind of the old school mentality. But I also agree with what you're saying too. I think within that element, you have to find like what clicks for you and what you are. And like, I'm Savanna Stone. Like, I used to, like, I'll give you a perfect example. When I first started, and I started when I was 16 years old, I used to do a lot of lucha. I used to be bouncing off the second rope and super athletic. And I even sometimes go back and I watch myself and I tell Brady, I'm like, oh man, sometimes I need to do that stuff. And he's like, no, stop. Like, what you're doing now is good. Like, that's who you are. You're an intense character. You're an intense wrestler. You should be striking. You should be, heavy kicks. So again, I think you have to find your character. I think you have to know who you are and then apply that to whatever style you choose.
Like, I like the Young Bucks and I like their style, but I don't want the Young Bucks as brawlers. Now,
right.
If the feud is right, and it is a blood type feud, then by all means, I want them to brawl.
Absolutely. I think it's exactly like you said. I think it depends on the type of match. I think it depends on your opponent. I think it depends on, have you had a feud before? Have you not had a feud? Is this the first time you're meeting up with this opponent? What's the story behind it? Have you had promo package work? Have you been advertising for this match? Have you not been advertising for that match? I think sometimes, at least that's what I think of when I come in before any match. I put a lot of thought into my matches before I come in, whether we have that history or whether we don't have that history, to decide where that style or where that level of emotion should come from. So yeah.
Now, you said you started training when you were 16. So thinking about 16-year-old you to where you're at today, what are some influences that you had along the way that really got you to where you are today?
Oh, man. Man, that's such a good question. It's a loaded question. I think the biggest thing, to get a little personal, like when I first started wrestling, I didn't really feel like I had much of a voice. I talked about this before. I'd gone through some traumatic things, abuse, mentally, physically, with someone that I thought, was supposed to care about me at the time. And it happened when I was very young. And I also wasn't taught like really the correct way to cope with it. And I was still dealing with it. Like, it happened when I was 15 and decided to become a wrestler at 16. So I didn't really have that full vision of how to cope with anything. And I think wrestling along the way taught me not only to that, to grow a voice and to have a platform where you can share, not just as a character, right? But also just like, you have your fans you talk to on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. You have these people that you can just not necessarily influence, because, I try not to influence people as much as possible. And if that happens, that's great. Hopefully it's for the good. But more just share, like, just your story, make people feel like, hey, this happened to me, whatever it might be. So I think I learned very much so how to have my voice in that, along the way. Recently realizing, probably wasn't until honestly I got to California, I realized how much your voice starts to matter, and that's something I think that's still kind of hard for me to wrap my head around. Learning to speak up for myself, just in general, both in the business of professional wrestling, but also outside, just in normal life, is difficult and challenging enough. But to start learning, to that it can be appreciated and almost I don't want to say like applauded, but almost thought highly of when you do share or when you are there for somebody. It's really rewarding. So I think that's like the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing.
Ruby Rays, Chris Statlander, Holly Cromwell, Thunder Rosa, Jordan Grace. It's all people that you've shared the ring with, and that's a who's who list of professional wrestling right now. Did 16-year-old you think that you would have those opportunities?
No. No, not at all. I don't even think, and it might be weird to say, I don't even think present me thinks that way. I think the people that you listed are honestly, and I know it may sound kind of cheesy, but very treasured in my mind. They taught me a lot. Whether they know it or not, whether we had sat down, and some of them we have, Ruby Ray's being one of them. We've gotten I've gotten the pleasure of being able to sit down and to pick her brain numerous times, just with different things. And she's been one of those people that have helped me in and out of the ring, just in my growth as a person. And Jordan Grace and Thunder Rosa and all of them, though maybe we didn't have the pleasure of like really sitting down and like having heartfelt talk, just the way that they held themselves, the way that they introduced themselves, them being names, me being, really nobody. I'm told not to address myself like that, but in the business, they don't really know you yet, and to be kind and to be open and to not only kind and open, but willing to help others grow, I think is something that's really lacked. And I know that's kind of harsh, but kind of lacked in this business today. And so for those girls to carry it on, that's something that not only I treasure, but something I hope to continue that legacy and do for not just younger women, but also for anyone that I wrestle with.
So having some matches with women of that caliber, can you think of any memories where you learned something in the ring with someone like that? Just kind of like special moments or an aha moment when you get to wrestle someone with a caliber of those ladies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where at least for me, I got the pleasure of training with some really good people, really, really young in my career. So it didn't necessarily, we talk about the aha moment, that click moment, right? For me, I feel like there's a lot of information that was just thrown at me, like good information that maybe didn't necessarily click at the time, but I'd write down or I'd put in my brain here and hope that one day maybe this would make a little bit more sense or whatever. I really, really tried with whatever information that was given to me to just be able to hold on to it. I think that's something that's if I would give any young wrestler a piece of advice, that's what I would give. But I think one of the biggest people that was that aha moment that clicked for me was Ruby Reyes, both in our singles match, but also in our tag team matches that we've recently had, because I think somewhat in order to have an aha moment or a click moment, you have to have an opponent that's willing to take you there and willing to kind of break those boundaries and emotionally, physically, structure wise, break those boundaries. And I feel like she provided me that platform to do it. And it was my choice if I was to take that and run with it. And I hope I did. But yeah, I think she really taught me the simplicity of wrestling. I think nowadays people make things so much more difficult than what it needs to be, and how you could do just this one move, but if you look at the crowd with real emotion, that realism that we talked about earlier, it tells a whole different story, and how to slow down. Everyone always says slow down, right? But like, slow down enough to even realize what you're doing, realize enough for it to click. Because if you're going too fast and you're just going, like, you may not even realize in your own brain that it clicked, if that makes any sense. So yeah, she taught me a lot.
You mentioned top two. How great is it to do this with James Brady?
He's my heart. I always refer to Savanna Stone as not having a heart, or whatever, but he's my heart. He is oh man, he has seen me through the lowest lows and the highest highs. He see me through the goods and through the bads, and I think having somebody in this business who gets it, and appreciates it, and has that same mindset in the sense of willing to learn, and started as young as I did too, I think gets it. And I think another thing too, which is so awesome, is through a lot of these bad experiences or good experience, it doesn't matter. He knows what my fears are because he's been there for so long. We started, I started when I was 16. He started when he was 17, going on 18. And so he's been there through most of it. So he knows, like, hey, like, this needs to be stepped up. Hey, what, you're feeling this, he knows all of that. He knows my triggers. He knows that. And I think just the journey that we've had has just been, has been amazing. And I love him. I love him so much. He's great.
Well, Savanna, I'm just gonna be honest. It sounds like everything's going like perfectly for you right now. Couldn't be happier for you. Appreciate you so much for joining us tonight. I know you've got a lot going on, a lot on your plate, but just know that we're pulling for you. Best of luck to you as always. Before we let you go, though, I'm gonna let you plug some merchandise if you got some, or social media, so anyone can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for having me and for kind of working around everything. I'm glad that we got to do this. If you guys want to go ahead and give me a follow, it's Savanna Stone 01 on Twitter. And then Savanna Stone 01 on Instagram. And just Savanna Stone on Facebook. I'm coming up with some new merch right now. I have a little bit of old merch left. Hit me up. It's limited sizes right now. But I have some new merch coming up with some new designs, and I'll even drop a little hint here, some new colors for the first time ever. I've always had that blue and that neon blue and neon green colors, and that'll be no more. So check it out for sure.
She's evolving. She's evolving right before our eyes. Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone make sure that you go out, follow her. If you're out and you see her name on a poster or a flyer, make sure you go check her out wrestling as well. Savannah, I'm going to be honest, this is a fantastic interview. One of my favorite interviews that we've kind of done so far. I always love it when our guests are real. And thank you so much for being that person for us. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. For everyone out there, make sure you all hit the subscribe button. Man, I mean, we're thankful for all the subscribers we got, but sometimes we look at the views and I'm just like, why didn't somebody just hit the subscribe button?
Yeah, you're checking it out.
I know it. It's so hard to hit the subscribe button sometimes, but we appreciate everyone out there for always supporting us. If you're bored, you need something to do, check out my book, Independent Road to Wrestler's Journey, and loving Casey Nelson. And yes, I got a message. Listen, I'm still working on the all women's book. Calm down. I know. I promised it had been out by now. All these great women keep getting signed to these promotions, and they're telling them they can't do the book no more. So then I'm starting back again. So on some of them, but I promise when it drops, it's going to be fantastic. And appreciate all the support as always. Tom, safe trip heading down to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. We're going to have a loaded week coming up, guys. Thank you again, Savanna, and we will see you all next week.